Welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLugo. Thanks so much for tuning in here on Friday, July 26th. Jaguars training camp day 3 in the books. This week is almost in the books, about to be time for the weekend. Fired up, obviously. Jaguars and myself will still be at work tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, training camp day 4. They will have the day off on Sunday. But we're going to get into this training camp day 3, talk about everything I saw out there. Shout out to James, who said what up, a fan of the show. Really appreciate you saying hello. Appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate everybody being here. If you enjoy the content, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. You can also check out genjag.com/shop, pick up some new Duval gear like the hat I am wearing right now. You can become a channel member here. Really appreciate all the channel members. Appreciate everybody tuning in. So, Jaguars training camp day 3. Before practice, Press Taylor spoke with the media. You can go check that out on Jaguars socials, YouTube, all that good stuff. Talked about some of the turnovers and the issues that the Jaguars offense has kind of had so far, and also the reasoning for having so much red zone work the first 2 days. Part of that was they didn't want players to overrun themselves in the first 2 days of camp while they're getting acclimated to the heat and having to go out there and practice for such a long time every day. They wanted to keep their legs fresh a little bit and get acclimated, and playing in the red zone condenses the field so you're not running as far as much every single practice. They did shift to more of a midfield setting today, playing a lot more outside the red zone. So that was interesting to see. He also talked about the struggles in the red zone that we've seen. Like yesterday, they only had 6 play calls in the red zone. So it's not like you saw the full offense. And the reason for that is they're still installing and working through getting everybody up to speed with the playbook and being comfortable. And so the goal for these practices right now isn't necessarily to go out and dominate every single rep, but to build muscle memory and build chemistry and cohesion for moving forward with the plays that they are installing that day. Plays that they have installed that day. Again, so only 6 plays in the red zone yesterday. Pretty easy for the defense to defend in that regard. So Press Taylor talked about that a little bit. I thought that was pretty enlightening, just knowing how limited they are. And so they're going to keep expanding on the playbook, keep growing what they're working through and what they're working on throughout training camp. So that's just something to keep in mind. I still think that the defense brought a lot more energy and looked really fired up out there yesterday and the day before. Today, we're going to talk about it. I thought it was a little bit more even on both sides of the ball. Thought the Jaguars offense looked better. And again, that's not all that surprising because the Jaguars offense has struggled a bit in the red zone under Doug Peterson. And they struggled a bit in the red zone the last couple of days. They've been an offense that moves the ball very well from 20 to 20. And you saw that today a little bit. They're a little bit sharper, right, on offense. So it's going to be interesting to keep an eye on how things are progressing for the Jaguars offense and defense for that matter moving forward. You did have some wide receiver and defensive back one-on-ones, tight ends as well. So we can run through a couple things we saw there. 11 on 11, still no pads. You had 7 on 7 and 11 on 11. You had 2 11 on 11 periods, 1 7 on 7 period. So we'll get into all that stuff here. So starting with the one-on-ones, wide receivers, some big notes here. Jarian Jones, he went down to the ground, was being looked at by trainers, medical staff. It was a little scary. Obviously, that was the first player that went down in camp so far, but he was able to come back in and continue playing. So nothing serious there, not a big issue. Great news on that front. Same thing with Seth Williams, who is a wide receiver that's been around a little bit. He's competitive. He's really big, strong, athletic receiver. After making a great catch one-on-one versus Buster Brown way down the field, Williams, he was down on the ground for a little bit being attended to, but he was also able to come back and continue practicing for the Jaguars. So that was great news that he had 2 kind of scary situations almost within a minute of each other, 2 minutes of each other in these one-on-ones, but both of those guys were okay. So that's great news on the injury front. Ronald Darby, one-on-one with Brian Thomas Jr., was able to get a pick. Trevor Lawrence threw the ball. And now when you're talking about quarterbacks throwing interceptions in one-on-one situations, I'm not going to really give much weight to that because it's one-on-one. Trevor Lawrence has to throw the football, right? That was the only pick he had today. That was really the only dangerous throw he had today, in my opinion. But again, it was one on one. You're having a rep. This is a rep that's about the wide receiver going against the defensive back more than it is about the quarterback. The quarterback's got to throw the ball, regardless of if there's tight coverage or not. But kudos to Ronald Darby, who just continues to make plays on the football. Made a nice interception there. Saw Evan Ingram make a leaping grab over Christian Braswell down the field one-on-one. And then Devin Duvernay, he had a big touchdown one-on-one versus Gregory Jr., got wide open down the field. So I thought that it was competitive. DBs and wide receivers one-on-ones. It was a good period for sure. And you like to get those competitive juices flowing. One-on-ones are a great way to do that. And then after that, you went into 11 on 11. Again, still no pads, so it's not full contact, but it looks like you're ramping up, getting a little more physical out there. Back-to-back really nice runs to start the 11 on 11 period, which was good to see because prior to that, you had seen the Jaguars defensive front really holding down the run game, and the defensive front still had a good day, but the offense was able to kind of show what they can do a little bit early on in these 11 on 11s. ETN had a nice run through a big hole, and then Tank Bigsby had a big run on a cutback. So good plays by both of those players, and the offensive line looked like they did their job on those plays. The run game as a whole did look better today, especially with ETN and Bigsby. Also saw later on Lorenzo Lingard was able to bust off a big run in 11 on 11. So you did see some improvement from the running game, I thought. Trevor, there was one play where he threw it behind Evan Ingram after stepping up in the pocket. Ingram was able to get his hands on it, but he was reaching behind him, going across the middle of the field. Not a great throw, but not a big deal. Keelan Robinson, I believe it was from C.J. Beathard, might have been from Mac Jones, but he was able to grab a pass short. He had to kind of leap for it into the air. It wasn't a super accurate pass, but he was able to go up and get it and then get upfield. This is a guy that has tremendous explosiveness and speed and quickness in the open field. So cool to see him kind of making a play out there. 6th-round pick for the Jaguars, who's definitely going to be on the football team, in my opinion. He's going to be a returner, but I think he's a player that has a little bit of X factor to him, a little bit of playmaking to him. You might be able to see him in certain spots throughout the 2024 campaign on offense if they want to get some juice injected into the offense. The 2s and 3s on defense, they were really stuffing the run against Dearness Johnson. You saw Jeremiah Ledbetter make some plays. Andre Carter, who's a player we haven't mentioned much so far. Again, once the pads come on, you'll see more from the offensive line and the defensive line. But Andre Carter, a really good undrafted free agent, a player that maybe could compete for the back end of the roster. It's going to be really tight on the defensive front. We'll see how it plays out, but I think he's a player that's going to stick around in the league. Mason Smith also made a run stuff. Good to see that from him, the Jaguars' 2nd-round pick, who he's physically imposing now, and he's a good football player, but he's still just got to continue to refine his technique and grow and get more experience. Tank Bigsby, his hands looked good. That's a situation we've monitored a little bit as during his rookie year, there was some ball security issues, whether it was catching a pass or fumbling the football. Hands look good. Bigsby, I think, had a strong day. Denzel Mims, he had a couple catches yesterday in team period of practice, and then today he caught a bomb from Mac Jones. He was able to get open down the field, beating Tavon Campbell. So Denzel Mims making a little noise back into the roster, competing. This is a guy that was a super high draft pick. Very good athlete, good size, good length, all that stuff. Making some plays a little bit here and there for the Jaguars. It's going to be tough to make this roster for him, but a guy who's certainly showing that he belongs on a 90-man roster in training camp, and he can compete. Jeremiah Ledbetter picked off Mac Jones. Jeremiah Ledbetter, defensive tackle, a big man interception. Bad pass tipped off the wide receiver's hands. I believe it was Austin Trammell, but it was a short pass. Mac Jones kind of threw it off balance, was inaccurate, popped off the receiver's hand. Ledbetter was right there to grab it, and he had an escort to the end zone. Don't know if he would have made it in a real game, but in this situation he did, and that was awesome. Big man getting his hands on the football. Defensive tackles, they don't get to touch the football a whole lot, so that was a pretty cool play for him. And Jeremiah Ledbetter is a guy who we're going to talk about a little bit more, but he's been impressive to me. Trevor Lawrence getting into 7-on-7s. He had a nice completion to Luke Farrell. ETN did bobble a pass out of the backfield, but hauled it in for a short gain, went to the ground, trying to catch that football. And then on the very next play, Trevor Lawrence went to him again to try to, get that confidence up. And I think it worked out because he got him the football for a nice little gain out of the backfield there. Trevor Lawrence was then able to complete a pass to Elijah Cooks. You then saw the backups getting in there, and Amani Oruwariye, backup corner who's been around the league a little bit. He got a PBU covering Elijah Cook's pass from Mac Jones there. Ventrell Miller picked up a pass breakup in 7-on-7. It was against Dearness Johnson. I think Dearness Johnson may have dropped that one anyways. It looked like he was bobbling it around, but Ventrell Miller made sure he did not catch that football. And so you've seen Ventrell getting his hands on the ball the last couple of days and making some plays. Seth Williams, he hauled in multiple passes after that little injury scare earlier in practice, multiple passes throughout the team portion of practice after going down and having to be attended to by the medical staff. So really good for Seth Williams, who again is a very competitive guy, someone who I think that were this wide receiver room not quite as deep, so much competition, he's the type of guy that could be a wide receiver 6 on a team. I think he has that type of talent to be an NFL receiver. Murtaugh, the tight end, big tight end, Australian, he had a nice contested catch in 7-on-7. Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas Jr. still not looking like they have that chemistry down yet. You saw Lawrence try to hit Brian Thomas Jr. on kind of a slant type of play. And it looked like it was a little outside of Brian Thomas Jr.'s reach, a little bit too far out there in front. I'm not 100% sure. Could Brian Thomas Jr. have caught it? I don't know. But at this point, it still looks like you're just trying to grow that chemistry between Lawrence and Brian Thomas Jr., the first-round pick. Andre Sisco had a big PBU late in 7-on-7s, covering Evan Ingram down the sideline. Good to see Andre Sisco making some plays on the ball. Then you got into 11-on-11 part 2. Some big-time team periods here today. Again, no red zone, so you're running around out there a little bit more. But getting into 11-on-11 part 2, Trevor Lawrence completed short to Evan Ingram 2 plays in a row. Short to intermediate to Evan Ingram, then completed another pass to Luke Farrell. Jeremiah Ledbetter got his hand on the ball again. He didn't intercept it this time, but he was able to tip a Mac Jones throw at the line of scrimmage. Tank Bigsby hit a nice spin move one-on-one in the open field. Travis Gibson was able to get a would-be sack on Mac Jones, and then Miles Cole had a would-be sack on C.J. Beathard. Miles Cole, the Jaguars' 7th-round pick. Travis Gibson, a free agent that the Jaguars signed who has experience with Bill Shuey, Jaguars' outside linebacker coach. I think Travis Gibson has the pole position as the edge 3 at this point behind Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen, obviously, but Miles Cole making a play out there as well. Trevor Lawrence got back in there for another round of 11-on-11. He was able to complete the ball to Evan Ingram deep down the field. He may have been sacked by Walker in a game setting, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Walker was definitely getting some pressure. Trayvon and Foye then blew up a run, and then another play down the field. Trevor Lawrence able to find Christian Kirk for a big play, a lot of green grass in front of him. So you saw the offense kind of get it going a little bit more, as I said. Devin Lloyd was able to blow up a screen. You saw Deshaun Dixon and Foye, they blew up a run together. Caleb Johnson, he sacked Mac Jones. DJ Coleman also got a sack. So there were some sacks out there today, no doubt about it, which I think a lot of those had to do with corner play and secondary play, doing a good job being sticky in coverage. So it was a fun day out there today, no doubt about it. Big takeaways from today and from training camp so far. I think the Jaguars were very fortunate today on the injury front with 2 kind of scary moments with Jarian Jones and Seth Williams, both of those guys being okay. Devin Duvernay has looked really good. He's found the end zone a lot. He's the type of guy that I think, he's had to start in Baltimore at times, both inside and outside, slot receiver and on the outside. He's got so much speed and he's such a veteran and good football player. I think that he's quite frankly a mismatch for a lot of depth players that's who he's going against right now in practice more often than not. And it's kind of a mismatch. More competitive day, as I mentioned, for the offense, playing better, certainly, but the defense still made a ton of plays as well. So I thought it was pretty even on both sides today compared to the first couple days. And again, not in the red zone. So I think that gives the offense a little bit more room to breathe and get things going. The running game looked a little bit better, still trading punches. The defense still had some really good run fits, but I thought that you saw the running backs get going a little bit here today. Ronald Darby has been making plays every single day. Was able to get the pick one-on-one against Brian Thomas Jr. today. Was able to force a PBU yesterday. Had a big interception in the red zone on the first day. So Ronald Darby, he's looking like a guy that should be a starter in the NFL, which he has a lot of experience. He has a lot of talent. Former high draft pick who's bounced around the league, has had injuries, but Ronald Darby's playing some good football opposite Tyson Campbell, who's also playing lockdown in coverage. You still want to see Brian Thomas Jr. and Trevor get it going a little bit. Still haven't been able to see that much. I think that it's looking like right now that chemistry just has to build. And I would be patient. I wouldn't jump to conclusions or rush to conclusions about this because it's still very early. And Brian Thomas Jr. just has not been in an NFL training camp before, right? But I think that overall you'd like to see it happen at some point where they get a little chemistry going. Hasn't happened yet, but I would be patient. Jeremiah Ledbetter, having a hell of a camp so far, and he had a really good camp for the Jaguars last year. Good training camp, good preseason. He's just a solid depth player for them up front, defensive tackle. I think Tank Bigsby is looking really darn good running the ball and showing his confidence in his hands so far. Josiah Jaguars, shout out a couple guys that I don't think are going to make the roster that are playing well. Josiah Jaguars, he's been really solid. He, played a lot of football for the Packers over the last several years, but it's going to be difficult for him to make the team because the Jaguars probably keep 3 tight ends, and Evan Ingram is obviously tight end 1. Brenton Strange not going anywhere as a second-round pick last year, and he's been playing pretty well as well. And Luke Farrell, I think the Jaguars like him a lot. So I don't know if Josiah Jaguars is going to have an opportunity really to make this roster unless the Jaguars keep an extra tight end. But he's been really solid, catching everything thrown his way. He just looks like a veteran who's been there and done that. And then shout out to a rookie undrafted free agent receiver, Brevin Easton. Not the biggest type of receiver, more of in that slot mold, but you have Christian Kirk, you have Parker Washington, you have Devin Duvernay, who are all undersized receivers. So I don't know that Brevin Easton is going to have any chance really of making this roster, but he's a talented football player. He's got the athleticism to go up and get it. He's really quick, fluid in and out of his breaks. I think he's looked really good so far. And of course, Joshua Cephas has as well. I think Cephas has the best chance to make it on the back end of this roster. Out of all the wide receivers, between him, Elijah Cooks, I think that's going to be an interesting battle there to make the back end of the roster. Really appreciate y'all tuning in, though. That's going to do it for today's show. If you enjoy the content, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. You can also check out genjag.com/shop, pick up some new Duval gear, become a channel member here on YouTube. Y'all have a good one.